What's up, traders? So today I'm going to tell you about a stock that I really like and is setting up perfectly for both selling puts and buying leaps. And I'll show you exactly how I plan on trading it moving forward. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Rashad. I am a full-time options trader, and I am blessed to bring in multiple six figures a year from the stock market, and I use the money I make from the stock market in order to pay for my entire lifestyle. Now, before we begin, make sure to go ahead and hit that like button. That just helps push this video out to more people, and go ahead and subscribe while you're at it. And do remember that I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any equities or options contracts. Now, it would not be my channel if I did not start off with a word from God that has to deal with money, investing, or business. And so today's scripture comes from Genesis 26:12-13. It says, Isaac planted crops in the land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. Now, I take two things from this verse. The first thing I take from it is you have to put in the work to get the results. All right, Isaac needed to plant those crops in order to get his harvest. You have to have your seed planted. All right, so you have to do the work in order to get the results. And that is usually the case for pretty much anything, right? Your knowledge is a lagging indicator of your learning habits. Typically, your weight is a lagging indicator of your diet and fitness. Typically, what you put in, you will also get out. But here's the second thing I get out of it. And a lot of people in the comment section are not gonna like this, but when it comes to planting your seed, things change when you start tithing. I'm just being honest. It just is what it is. Tithing totally changes things, because there are things that God just does when you are obedient, and the word says it. And in all full transparency, I didn't start faithfully tithing until this year. In January of 2025 is when I started tithing. And the amount that I made in 2024 from all of my businesses, I made that same amount within a few months of 2025. Now, is it just a coincidence that I became that much better of a businessman? It's possible, but you have to ask the question, is it probable? And here's my thing, if you're not where you want to be financially, what do you have to lose? Because the worst case scenario is that you give 10% of the money that you make to an organization that you believe in your heart of hearts will do good things with the money. And that's the worst case scenario if tithing doesn't work. All right, and then on top of that, you'll get a tax deduction as well. Okay, so that's if tithing doesn't work. That's if you're right and I'm wrong. But now let's assume that I'm right and you're wrong. Well, the scripture says that God will open up the windows of heaven and pour out so much that you will not have room enough to receive. And I have absolutely experienced that is 100% true. All right, but that's the scripture for today. I hope that blesses somebody. But when we're talking about getting our seeds planted, there are people in the Trader Freedom community who are absolutely doing that, and I have to absolutely shout them out. So today we're going to start off with Steven. Steven said he made $4,400 last week, and that is $7,100 month to date. And we are just in the 12th day of the month, and so over $7,000 in 12 days. That is amazing. So shout out to you, Steven. And then we have Michael here. He posted his profits for the first week of August. So we can see here it's from August 1st to August 8th, and he made a net gain of $1,349. So that is amazing. Shout out to you, Michael. And then we have another member showing their profits from our trades in TQQQ and Uber, and they are up quite considerably. So shout out to you. And then last but not least, we have Layla. She says, made my first 0 DTE trade. Did my toes in today and walked away with $239.84 of profit. P&L ratio of 72%. Not a bad start. Plenty more to learn, but it's good to see the strategy in motion. Thanks, Rashad. All right, so very first day trading 0 DTE, and 0 DTE is a day trading strategy. So we have day trading strategies for the people who like that, and then we have monthly income strategies for the people who are a little bit more busy. And so if you do know anybody who you think could benefit from learning our wealth building strategies, tell them about the Trader Freedom community. The link is below in the description. They'll get my exact trades. They'll get the Trader Freedom course. They'll get access to ask me questions at any given time. And lastly, they'll be within a community of other traders who all have the exact same goal. So if you do know anybody, link is below in the description. But without further ado, let's get down to business. So the stock that we will be discussing today is CrowdStrike, ticker symbol CRWD. All right, and so I'm pulling up this article from Bar Chart, and this article is titled "One AI Stock Analysts Are Quietly Raising Their Price Targets On." And if we scroll down a little bit, I want to point a few things out. So first off, it says Jefferies raised CrowdStrike's price target to $530 from $520 and assigned a buy rating, citing cybersecurity as a long-term trend due to its growing importance. Wedbush analyst Dan Ives maintained his hold rating with a new price target of $575, which is also the stock's high price estimate. Citi analyst Fatima also maintains the high price target of $575 and a buy rating. Separately, while raising the price target to $495 from $490, Morgan Stanley analyst Keith Wise downgraded the stock to equal weight from overweight. These upward price target revisions followed a strong first quarter of its fiscal 2026. CEO George Kurtz said on the quarter one earnings call that the company began the fiscal year from a position of strength, and the numbers back this up. But if we go ahead and scroll down a little bit more, so this section is titled Why Wall Street Likes CrowdStrike's Growth Story. Analysts are optimistic about CrowdStrike for a variety of reasons. First, high ARR growth. Now, ARR stands for annual recurring revenue, but it says long contract durations and 97% retention all indicate predictable revenue streams. Now, first off, when a company has recurring revenue, that's what I like the most because it's very predictable. And so when I do my calculations and try to determine what price I would like to get in on a stock based on what their future numbers look like, when they have recurring revenue sources, that is extremely easy, right? Because we can reasonably predict what they will do in the future when they have recurring revenue. And then it also mentioned the long contract durations. Now, contracts with their customers are normally somewhere around the 2 to 3 year range. So it's not like a customer could just be upset with the company and switch services to another provider like the next month. No, they're in for a 2 to 3 year contract. And as you can see here, it says that they keep about 97% of their customers. So not only is CrowdStrike locking in their customers for a very long duration, but also they're doing things good enough that makes the company want to continue on with CrowdStrike for even longer. All right, and so it says second, Falcon Flex shortened sales cycles while significantly increasing customer lifetime value. CrowdStrike's use of agentic AI and Charlotte AI position it at the forefront of securing next generation attack surfaces, including autonomous AI agents. Additionally, CrowdStrike's expansion is not limited to a single product line. The company is expanding into several product categories, including cloud security, exposure management, next generation SIEM, and identity protection. Finally, a strong balance sheet and expanding product portfolio may be further reasons why Wall Street sees more upside. Now, if we can, I want to go ahead and take a look at the analyst predictions. So if we look here, we can see that analysts have it currently as a moderate buy. And out of 47 different analysts, over half of them at 27 have it as a strong buy currently. All right, and if we come up here and we look at the price targets, we can see that the stock is currently $436, but the mean target is $483, the high target is $575, and the low target is $350. All right, so collectively, analysts see a pretty decent upside movement for CrowdStrike from here. Now, not only do I believe that they have tremendous growth still to come, I want to look at the charts so we can see where some very recent support has formed that will give us a good amount of data for our trade. Now, I'm currently looking at the weekly candles because I wanted to go back a little bit in time. And so, as we know, last year, CrowdStrike had a huge negative event that occurred, all right, because they essentially shut down all airports, some banks, and several other things. They had an event because Microsoft Office uses CrowdStrike, and CrowdStrike shut down or has some issues with their software that made it impossible to open up Microsoft and for these companies to do what they needed to do. And so it essentially shut down a ton of business during the day. All right, and so this event happened last summer in 2024, and I actually was a part of this event because I was supposed to be flying out the morning that this happened. And so if I pull up this picture here, this was actually a picture that I took while in the Boston airport. I was traveling from Boston, or I was supposed to be traveling from Boston to Ohio this morning, and this was the day that CrowdStrike had the issue. So you can see here, we are all just shoulder to shoulder. The news was in there, and I believe if you watch the news for that day, you'll probably see me in the background. But to make a long story short, because the airlines could not open up their Microsoft platform, there was essentially a ton of canceled flights. All right, now the airlines didn't really know what was going on at the time that I was there, and so what they kept doing is they kept delaying my flight over and over and over again. And so I ended up spending 6 hours in this airport waiting for this flight that was supposed to still be happening, for them just to go ahead and cancel the flight after I already waited for 6 hours. All right, so you can see how crazy this is. Everybody's shoulder to shoulder, and if I zoom in, you can see all the way back to the door, everybody is shoulder to shoulder. No one knows what is going on, not even the airline employees. And so now if we go back to the chart, that is what this period here consisted of. But as we know, CrowdStrike has recovered quite greatly from that situation, and the company's management handled this situation better than most companies would. They had full transparency about everything. They was transparent with the companies that they were working with. They were transparent with the public. They handled it very, very well. And so because of that, the stock price has gone up quite considerably over the last year. But if we see as of recently, over the last almost 1.5 months, it has gone down just a bit. hit. But now that we see that, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the daily candles, and I want you to notice something here. Okay, so it came down over this last month and a half, and then it hit here around 420, but it held. And then the next day it came and it hit 420 again, but it held. And then the next day after that, it hit 420 again, but it held. And so when looking at this, I was like, I wonder why it is getting support at the 420 level, because I thought maybe it would come down to this 400 level and get support there. And so what I did is I went and I looked at the gamma exposure. And so I pulled up gamma exposure for CrowdStrike. And if you're not familiar with gamma exposure, you can see here it says gamma exposure highlights important price levels where there is significant gamma based on market positioning and open interest. These elevated values reflect where market makers may need to hedge to mitigate their risk, offering important levels of support and resistance. All right, so you can use gamma exposure as a way of seeing where support or resistance may be. And gamma exposure is actually a new tool that I've added to my personal tool belt. However, we do have people in the community who use gamma exposure. We have a member named Frankie. He is basically the king of gamma exposure. He can tell you every single bit about it. But if we come over here, negative gamma exposure can typically be used as a very good form of support or resistance. And if we look here at the chart, if we scroll over here, you can see right here at what? The $420 level, there is a huge amount of negative gamma exposure. And so market makers likely do not want for this stock price to go under 420, which is why it bounced off of 420 for 3 straight days in a row and now has gone up 2% for today and is at $435. All right, so there is extreme negative gamma exposure right here at 420, which would explain why it bounced off of those levels for 3 straight days. All right, and so if you would like access to this data, this is barchart.com, but you can get it absolutely free 30 days if you use the link below in my description. Use it for 30 days, see how you like it. I use it every single day to look up data points and find new trades. They have a ton of data on this website, so go ahead, link is below in the description. Try it for 30 days, see how you like it. If you don't like it, get rid of it. However, I do believe that you will like it, so go ahead and try it. But now that we have all of this data, now we need to go ahead and look at a potential trade. So now let's head over into the Moomoo platform. So now we're in the Moomoo platform and I'm still looking at CrowdStrike. And if we look down here at the stochastics, so I use stochastics when I do any type of buying strategy. So when I'm buying leaps, I use the stochastic. And so what I want is for one, the stochastic to be pointing upwards, right? So that just simply shows that the stock has positive momentum at the moment. And then also I want the stochastic to be over 20, all right? Because under 20 is the oversold area and then above 80 is the overbought area. And so we can look at the stochastic here and we can see it is way down here at about a value of 6 right now. And so it's well into the oversold area, but I need for it to start pointing upwards and go above 20. All right. And so once it comes above 20, then that will be my cue to go ahead and start buying leaps. However, since it has not hit that part just yet, I want to go ahead and sell puts or credit spreads in order to get paid to wait around while I wait for the perfect leap scenario. And so let's come on over here to the options chain. So I'll click options and we can see that they have earnings on August 27th. And so that's a few weeks out from now. And so since I am absolutely fine with owning the shares of the company, I'm going to go ahead and use their earnings date to my advantage. So I'm going to come to the date that is just outside of their earnings date. And so I'll select this date that is 17 days out from now. Now, we already know that it has some level of support at the $420 level. However, if that support level were to break, then it should show another form of support at the $400 level. Because one, we've seen that the 200-day moving average was there, but also that is a nice round number. And so anytime you get a nice round number, a multiple of 10, a multiple of 50, a multiple of 100, then you'll typically see a good amount of support or resistance there. And so since 400 is a multiple of 100, it is very likely that it should see some form of support at that mark. All right, so I know there will be support at 420 and there possibly will be another form of support at 400. And so I would like to be somewhere under 400 just to be safe. And so if we come over here and we look at the expected move, we can see the expected move is about $43 currently. And the expected move is really great to use around earnings. And so if we subtract this $43 from the $434 mark that CrowdStrike is at right now, that'll put us around 390. And so if we come over here to 390, if I look over here at the delta, that's a delta of 0.18. So that fits my criteria very greatly because I typically like deltas of 0.20 or less. And so at the delta of 0.18, there's about an 82% probability of profit for me if I were to enter into this trade right here, right now. And so if we go ahead and select the bid price, we can see at the mid price, I would get about $6.32. And of course, every contract is worth 100 shares. So we'll times that by 100 and we can see that our max profit will be $630. $32 exactly. All right, so as long as CrowdStrike stayed above $390 by the expiration date, we just make our money and we go about our day. However, on the flip side of selling puts, if the stock were to go below our strike price by the expiration date, then we are agreeing to buy 100 shares of the company per contract if that were to happen. And so if we are selling puts at a $390 strike, we need to be comfortable with having the potential to buy 100 shares of the stock at $390. Well, of course, you would need a pretty decent sized account in order to do that. And so if that is not you, then what you could do is you could use credit spreads. All right, and to turn this into a credit spread, we just need to go ahead and buy a put at anywhere under $390. And to do that, I would just come over here, and from here, it's really up to you, and it's based on one, your account size, and two, how much you're willing to risk for this trade. All right, so the bigger the width of your spreads, the more money you'll make from the trade. However, the more money you'll need to put on the trade to begin with. And the more narrow your spreads, the less money you'll make. However, the less money you'll need in order to put on the trade to begin with. And so in this case, let's go ahead and just do like a $10 wide credit spread. All right, so we sold to open the 390. And so I'll go ahead and I will buy to open the 380, which will make it a $10 wide spread. So I'll just come over here and I'll hit the ask price now. And we can see that Moomoo automatically loaded up the ticket for us. And now our max profit goes down to $165. However, all we need in order to put on this trade is $835. And that is also the maximum that we could lose from this trade if the trade were to go against us. All right, so only $835 for this specific credit spread, while technically the max loss was around $38,000 something if you were to just do the selling puts by itself. All right, but that is exactly how I am trading CrowdStrike right now, because I want to get paid to wait around while I wait for the perfect opportunity to start buying leaps. But that is it for this video. Let me know in the comment section below if you plan on trading CrowdStrike at all. And do remember, I'm looking forward to all the gains that we will be getting in the community from this stock. And again, if you know anybody who would like to join, the link is below in the description. But I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!